am I a creator or am I a consumer? If you are in your energy and you really have a sense of yourself, you also have to be a creator. And if you are a creator, the question is, what do I want to create today?
What's lighting you up at the moment, Søren?
What's lighting me up? I love the sun, so whenever we have sunshine, I'm outside as much as I can and get a lot of it. I'm also looking forward to our next holidays, which is going to Thailand for 3 weeks, Singapore and Bangkok. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Well, I'm 45 now, and I feel like I have this inner feeling of arriving, getting more and more here to where I am, to who I am, which, is a long journey sometimes to understand yourself and have, yeah, almost like a clearer feeling of who I am and what I want. So, uh, as you said, you love quick learnings. I'm doing that also internally with all the stuff that's going on. So this is almost my internal tennis, to teach my mind, teach my soul, getting better at this, sensing energy, sensing humans, friends, clients, and work with that and learn with that. And every time you talk to someone, it's also a mirror for yourself. It's almost like you attract all the people you talk to get even better for yourself. And I love this kind of journey and adventure.
Me too. And I'm not sure if I'm going to include because we were talking before we recorded, basically. We were talking about I'm getting back into playing lots of sports, spending time with my family. And it's the quick feedback with playing things like tennis, table tennis. There's a constant chance to keep improving upon every single shot. And that's what you were referencing before. So just in case we don't include that in the intro, that's the reference to what you're talking about. So it's that quick feedback. But I also love, first of all, I didn't realize you were 45. Man, you're looking good for 45.
Thank you so much.
Second of all, it's a great reminder that when you're talking about you're 45 and you feel like you're just arriving, that I think is a message that never gets tiring for anyone to hear. And it's always a reminder that we're forever unfolding, that there's no set boundaries for the more of what we can learn about ourselves. And so tell us about what you are uncovering about yourself at this time, age 45.
One of the things I learned on my way is that I came up in a society where you learned that at some point you have to be someone. Like you have to cross off certain things on the list. And when you've done that, you're right or you're ready. And let's say you study and you get a job, you have a girl or a boyfriend, then maybe get married, have a dog and a house and a tree. And then when you have all this, you're supposed to be happy. But this didn't work for me. I had the feeling I was trying to find all this in my 20 years of working. And always there was a sense of, is this me? Why am I doing this? This doesn't really make me happy. I'm chasing something. I'm not feeling good with myself. And then I broke out. I quit everything. I sold everything, my apartment, my clothes. I had just a bag. And I decided I want to leave Germany. I want to go to Panama with a cruise ship. On that cruise ship, there was an event that was called Nomad Cruise because I wanted to learn how people work remotely. But then when people ask me, why are you leaving Germany? What do you want to see? I said, it's not about to explore the world. It's about to explore myself. I really want to get a sense of who I am, what I want, how I want to live, and what is nurturing me. And it took me kind of like 3 years to be away to get the sense of feeling of myself. And then I decided to come back. And it was interesting because when people then met me, they said, you're a totally different person. You feel like you're grown up now. You're not like a teenager anymore. You really stepped into a new energy. And that was kind of good for me to feel. And at the same time, feeling coming back into the system of Germany, And at the same time, looking through the illusion of the system, like you have to do it like this or you have to do it like that. And then to go back into a normal job, but feeling I'm looking at it, I'm not in it. And that gave me a lot of power. If I felt like I was disillusionized. In Germany, we have a word. It's called Enttäuschung, which means disillusionized. But when you use it not like this, but when I talk to people and I say the word like this, enttäuscht, disillusionized, I don't know if this is even a word in English, but then people are like, oh yeah, you're right. It's helping to look behind what's going on. And that for me was something that a big win for me to have this new view when I was coming back to understand a bit more what kind of society I was born into, that we are all living in kind of a system, and that we have an opportunity to break out of it, but still stay inside, because a lot of people think, I have to change my life, I have to go away, but you can also change your inside and stay in the system and gain happiness or strength or a sense of self, but you don't have to run away. You can run towards yourself and get a better sense of who you are and what you want.
Yeah, when you were talking about traveling before, and that we don't need to go outside ourselves, we don't need to go outside of our environments in order to transform. Everything's always here. We know that. That's a kind of a deep wisdom we all know. Yeah, it can help, but it's a great reminder that really when you're here alone or just doing what you're doing in this moment, living your life, all it takes really is to just do something different. Just the ever so slightest little change in your life from where you stand right now, and that can cause this cascade of potential feedback that you can start to shift and change. That might lead to traveling, and then it might unfold even further, because I'm just reflecting on every time I've been and I've traveled a lot, but every time I've traveled, I wouldn't say I specifically really tried to plan a trip. It's always happened really organically. I found myself in these places for various reasons. One of the first times was going on tour with a band, so I ended up traveling around all of Europe in a van, and that opened up the possibilities for me of, wow, I can travel and this is easy and it's safe, and I don't think I would have had the same life experience if it wasn't for that organic opportunity for me to go out and do that. Then when I went to work in Asia, that opened up the whole possibility to travel around Thailand and Bali and all these different areas, and Borneo, Singapore. I don't know if I would have done that thing where I specifically planned a big 6-month trip in Asia like a lot of people do. No, it all just happened organically. And obviously it was very transformational for me. But yeah, thinking about right here, right now, just getting out of certain loops that I might find myself in, it really just takes a little bit of action, any kind of action. And then you step out the comfort zone, and that starts this whole process of recognizing where you're on and off a lot more clearly. And actually, I know you talk about loops a lot, and I like that idea and analogy because it makes a lot of sense. We kind of very cyclical. And tell me about your perception of what that means as a person to maybe be stuck in a loop and how we can get out of that.
Well, it's something I discovered in the work with my clients, but also when I talk to friends, and mostly people get to a point of, I can't take it anymore. Something is off and I don't understand it. And maybe you know it as well, when friends for the 4th time break up with someone, or that person was breaking up with them. And then when they are out of that and they look back to it, they feel like, it feels like I've done this 3 times before. And now for the 4th time, this guy or this girl is breaking up with me. What's happening? What am I doing that this is happening to me over and over again, right? Or when we talk about money, right? People gain money, out of a sudden it's gone. And it almost feels like it's the same way it's gone. So they feel like, oh, I feel like I don't deserve that kind of money. And then we're in this loop, and then we try it again. And when we have the opportunity to understand that this is a loop we create, our system creates, because it's saying, we want you to clear this up. We want you to get out of it. And that's why we're repeating it as long as it takes for you to see it. And then to, to be of support, or also to explain how I understood my loops and still have my loops and discover them, and to understand, oh, this is a loop. And then to learn how to step out of them and really break them and create either positive loops or a new way of thinking and living, brings a lot of new performance energy that you realize, oh, cool, I can detect it now. So I can see what's the circle, like what's my loop. And then I also can learn how to step out of it and to catch the loop, because that's sometimes the hardest part. I mean, we all have friends that we know whenever we meet them, there are at least these three different topics they will talk about: money, friends, family, or holidays, work, which they don't like, and what other topic they want to talk about. So this, in a very easy way, are loops that we repeat. So if you just meet a person and you don't bring something from you and you just listen, you will see whenever you meet them, there's a certain topic they will always talk about. And then to give them some support, either as a coach or as a friend, to, work as a mirror and say, hey, I want to tell you, this is a topic that I hear a lot with you. And I want to ask you, how do you feel about it? Is this something you want to still repeat? Is this something you know? Where do you know this from? And would you like to get out of it? And then to see where we can find an opening.
How can people get out of this loop?
The easiest way is to first see that it's a loop. That's the part where you disillusionize yourself, where you realize, oh, I'm repeating this. And then mostly we feel shame, or we feel like, oh, somebody got found it out, because there's an underlying topic we maybe don't want to talk about, or we don't want to see it. But the first step is always to understand, I have a loop. That's it. And then to give a name to your loop, right? So either I once had a client and he was saying, the drama happens over and over and over again. So we called it the drama loop. And then we started to detect, when do you feel like you have to go into drama? What's going on? Why is there always a new drama waiting for you? What's it keeping you from? And then have really good questions that help you not just to know you have a loop, but also to understand, when does it start? How long does it go? What is it keeping me from? What kind of energy is it taking from me? And mostly what happens is that people understand, oh, it keeps me from growing because I stuck here. I cannot move forward. And then to almost nurture this feeling of, I want to grow. I want to get out of it. I want to grow. And then the next thing that I find very helpful is to have outside markers that reminds you you're in it. Because when we're in it, it's so hard to see it, right? If you're in the drama, you don't see it. But if you have outside markers to remind you, hey, are you in the drama? So these markers can be notifications on your phone, or I love to put post-its everywhere that ask the question, are you in the loop or not? So that people learn to question themselves, to understand, where am I? Am I in it or not? And that gives you the opportunity to step outside. And then you need a strong decision to say, yes, I want to step out. And then to have ways to step out of it, and at the same time to then realize and feel how it feels to be out of it.
Definitely. That loop, I see that in families a lot. Families are
biggest loops.
Because you're in your own loop with a family, But then when you, obviously you have to have that lens of being able to view this from a different perspective. If you don't have the awareness that there's already a loop and this kind of drama thing going on, then you're just going to be stuck in it and swimming around in it endlessly.
Yeah.
So first of all, you have to have that awareness. Oftentimes, the rest of your family don't have that awareness. So there's
Yeah.
a certain level of loneliness that comes with that, because you're kind of observing what's happening, going through your own processes and observing the changes as well. And this is the thing for me, because I guess I'm talking about my own experience with
Mm-hmm.
my family over, say, the last decade or so, going in and out of the family dynamic, because I've been traveling so much, so I haven't seen them so much. But you come
Mm-hmm.
back, and families are the best teachers, because they pull all these triggers out of you and bring all these emotions up, and they will show you all of these patterns. Now, when I do my inner work, I shift whatever's coming up in me around that situation. And it may seem to amplify and make it worse in the short term. But if I step away and come back, that energy I've shifted, the emotions I've shifted, the traumas, whatever it might be, I come back and actually notice a change in the way everyone else behaves. And it could be subtle,
Yeah.
it could be big, but it's really fascinating to observe how your siblings may talk to each other in the same way every single time, and how everyone around dinner may get into the same argument or the same problem around the same issue. And rather than getting into the loop, you're like, oh, this is driving me nuts, but how can I just become at peace with it? Because if it's in me, I'm the one creating this reality for myself. So
Yeah.
families are so fascinating for observing how the loops happen and how we get so pulled into them as well. Yeah, how does that?
It reminds me of one of the things that I came up with in coaching. Something I really like to give my clients when they understood their loop, and it has also something to do with their family, and they have to go back to family. I once had a client, she just opened a big, huge loop of herself, and that really disturbed her. And she was like, really, oh my God, so much. What I understand now. And this has so much to do with my family. And just 3 days later, she had to go and visit her family for 2 weeks. And she was thinking, oh my God, can I do this now? Because I'm ripped open. I feel like I need to understand this a bit more and go deeper with this with myself. And then I said, I think you can go because now you understand your loop. And one thing I want to give you is the profit. And she said, what's the profit? And I said, yeah, well, if you understand your loop, you can go home now. You can sit there and almost predict what is going to happen next. Because now you know the loop. You will know what your mother would say. And you will also know how your father will respond to it. And then how your brother will create the same choir of your family. And if you know that, it will help you not to go into it. So the prophet is already telling you what's going to happen, and you know it because it's your family, right? And she said, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go home. I'm going to be the prophet. And I think just one day later, she sent me a message and she said, this is so funny because I feel like almost like a director of my family because I know exactly what's going to happen, but this keeps me from going into it and keeping myself outside of it. But I know what's going to happen. And she was so happy about this because instead of falling into this illusion loop that her family had created, she was able to stay out of it just by thinking, okay, I'm a prophet. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen next. And then he will say this, she will say this, and then my brother will come in, and then the dog will, and that gives you new power. It just takes a while to stay outside because sometimes what triggers us is so subtle and so tiny, and it goes so deep that it takes a little bit of learning um, and training. But as you said, if you change, also your family will change because you're not going into that loop anymore and you're creating something new. And even though you're not telling them, you will bring it to the table and that will give opportunity for your family to adjust to you instead of you adjusting to your family.
What's coming to me is just imagine a circle, because this is the only way I can try to imagine it now. And each person in the family is a connection point in that circle. So you've got your mum, your dad, your brother, your sister, your uncle, your auntie, whatever, and they're all creating this collective shared circle, this bubble.
Yeah.
And if you're feeding it just as they are, you're keeping this going, just like you're juggling a ball. You're just keeping it up, keeping it going the whole time. But as soon as you have that awareness and you step out of that, all of a sudden you're removing that energy. You're removing feeding that energy. So by its very nature, that ball of energy has to behave differently because you've
Yeah.
removed yourself from them rather than keep feeding it. And that's where the awareness comes in around these changes. And it may not happen in the instant that we all wish would happen. It may take weeks and months and years, but it's subtle as well. You recognize these subtle shifts and changes. But I love what you said about this profit thing, because I think dinner time is such a classic family drama space. So using that as an example, as you said, it's so amazing. You can predict what everyone's going to do around certain situations. Somebody doesn't like their carrots. And because everyone else thinks they should eat their carrots because it's healthy for them, but that person doesn't like them, even though they know they don't like them, everyone will still potentially force and try to make this person try their carrots. And it hasn't
Yeah.
happened over 2 decades already. So why are we keeping this thing going? So because you know that story is going to happen already, then you can almost plan and write a new script beforehand. So when it actually comes round to it, you go, right, when this happens, I'm going to say something different. I'm going to choose something different and change that way this story plays out. So it's a new play. And I think that's really fun.
What I found out is that the simpler, the better. So, and here with this example, the simplest thing I can bring it down to is that what is very special about humans that we have our own will. So we can decide. But if you're in the loop, you cannot really decide for yourself because you take the decision that is forced on you from the loop. But now, if you understand it and you step out of it, you can actually make a decision. How do I want to shine? What kind of son do I want to be? Or what kind of daughter? What kind of boyfriend or girlfriend do I want to be? Which means instead of reacting to what is happening to you and they pull all your buttons and push your buttons, you decide how I want to react. How do I want to shine? How do I want to be different now? And that's the same thing with, and that mostly comes next, that we adapt what we learn from our family, which means love. Our family teaches us what it means to love. So we take that definition into our system, and that's how we then also start to look for love. Same with money, right? If you come from this kind of family, they teach you this kind of learnings about money, and this is how you go into the world. And then one of the questions that I love to ask is, how does your family define love? And to write it down. But then have you ever decided how you want to define your love? Like, what does it mean to you? And is there a difference? Can you have a different definition? Can you have your own dictionary that says, this is my Søren dictionary or my Steve dictionary, in which I took what I learned, had a critical look at it, and then made my own decision, used my free will as a human to decide, oh, this is what I learned, and this is what I want to keep moving on with. So to understand that I have the opportunity to change it and make a different decision. And then also accept that my family's decision is this. They define love like this, or my father like this, my mother like this. But now I have my own dictionary, which I can fill, and love for me means a totally different thing. And now I don't have to try to change them. Also, I don't have to make them understand me, but I made a decision. And that's bringing in new freedom, emotional freedom, so to say, because emotionally, at that moment, you're free from your parents and from your family because you decided that you have a different definition, and that's okay. And you live by this definition now. And that also will it make it easier for you to detect the old definition that was taught on you.
And then the next step is when you start to shift that pattern, you've got to keep that up in that constellation, because it's so easy for us to see the disappointment in everyone's eyes and body language and their energy because you're not behaving how we programmed you to behave. And oftentimes it can bring in this sense of, I'm sad, I'm disappointed, I'm upset, and I'm going to kind of ignore you now because you're no longer performing the way I wish you to perform. And so that can be quite alluring in our emotional and energetic system, because we feel like, okay, now I'm becoming outcast, so I best come back into the energy field and back into this pattern to please everyone, because I don't want to lose my family, I don't want to lose my friends, whatever the example might be. But if we know that truth, we need to stay strong in this new paradigm of love. Let's use your example, and stay strong in that. And you come back into this constellation here, they will radiate towards that new vibration rather than getting down into the old program vibration. So that's our job, is to keep holding this new space and expanding and being very okay with making other people uncomfortable, not in a doing it on purpose, pointing fingers kind of way, but out of a standing in your truth way and just letting other people come and join you in that space. Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for
And not to provoke, because it's more like, this is me, and I'm not doing this to provoke you. And as we probably all have learned from our family, how easy it can be that somebody tell, oh, you have a new haircut, I don't like the color, you're not my son anymore, like this. How many people have heard this? Which then to your inner child, the message is, change your hair, you're not my child. And even though it's just not a heavy sentence, or it was just not meant like this, but these are messages that we eat up, and that we then we are disappointed. We felt beautiful with the hair, but now we feel like, is this the right color? Should I change it again? And then we start questioning ourselves. And that's when we start trying to fit in again. And I once heard a very interesting study where they put people on treadmills next to each other, and they had to run next to each other for 30 minutes. And they didn't give them any kind of what to do on it. And what they learned is all people on the treadmill always resonated mostly to the person walking or running the slowest. So if you had one person running quick, nobody tried to attach to that tempo. They were all going down. So as you said, it's easier to tune down the energy and go back into the system instead of creating something different, quicker, something stronger, because we are so also learned to go back, to go down, to go the step down. And so I think it's very important in that time, when you try to learn to get out of this, to really have good support by your side, either a friend who's doing the same, or you have a coach, or you have a friend, or someone you can really talk to about this, so that you have someone to check in with you. Am I trying to step down again to fit in again, or am I stepping up and staying on my trail to get into the energy that I want to resonate.
The speed thing, I believe, is quite a big block for a lot of people. This is a block pattern and a loop that I found myself in the past. And it was a fear, and it was the secondary gain of me not succeeding and not taking all the action that I wanted to take, because there was this innate wisdom within me that could already feel the speed of that energy, the fluidity of that energy, like a river that has no blockage at all, and the water's just rushing furiously down this stream, and nothing's slowing it down, nothing's stopping it. And it's so fast and smooth that to just settle in that takes a lot of surrender. So it's actually more comfortable to have these things that slow us down and block us, and all these bends and corners and big rocks that stop us having that super flow, because it's actually a lot more comfortable. It's much easier to get out of the side of the bank and protect ourselves and stay safe than to just full speed ahead like our infinite source of energy that it is. Because then it becomes very, and this isn't the truth, but this is the belief system that many of us could have, it could be very lonely. As you were talking about the treadmill, I love that. I've never heard that study before, but that's fascinating. Makes sense as well. You're going so fast, it becomes very lonely, because if the majority of people are programmed into going slow, then where are you going to be? How are you going to have your community and your friends and connections? Because it's a very lonely thing. Again, this isn't the truth, but this is the belief system that we program into ourselves. It's almost like the other side of the shame piece. You know, when we talk about shame is one of the lowest emotions there is. And that's highly linked to way, way back. If we had shame, that was probably going to be linked with, you know, maybe you did something bad in the community and you got ousted from the community. And what that meant back in the day is you would die because you were on your own. The community kept you safe and kept you warm and kept you fed. But if you were out in the woods and you were not allowed to come back to that community, you would most likely die after a certain period. So it's very linked to death. Now, I've never made this connection before, but right now I'm seeing that this super fast speed of infinite flowing energy could have the same kind of idea of loneliness that also then tells the mind, if I'm alone, then I'm going to die, and I'm going to die alone.
I think this is one of the toughest loops to break, to understand I'm different than my family. But if I continue my path, my real path, I really have to detach from my family to have a chance to get into that energy. And that makes us lonely. A picture that came up for me in coaching, and I use a lot with my clients, is that I say, if you're a hawk and you're raised by chicken, they will raise you like a chicken, which means they teach you how to pick, they teach you how to lay eggs if you can, but then very quick they will realize you're different. So they will really try to make you fit in because they want you to be a chicken. And when you get to the moment realizing I'm different, I kind of like feel like I'm not fitting in here. And that brings me right back to my childhood. I remember from early years on, I felt like an alien in this family. I really felt like somebody brought me here, but this is the wrong address. How could I end up here? And I wanted to go somewhere else. So if you have this kind of feeling, but you don't know you're a hawk, you're a totally different species, so to say, in that family, it's going to be very hard for you to change. You will always try to be a chicken. But then if you have the chance to do certain things that help you to understand who you are, and some people either go for natural medicine, they do ayahuasca, they do plant medicine, they do meditation, yoga, hypnosis, all the things, you know, what you do to go a little bit and look behind the curtain, what's going on inside of me. And then when they understand I'm a hawk, to get the sense of, wow, that's a powerful picture, which means I'm also dangerous for chicken if I want to. But at the same time, if I don't start to fly and learn to fly and use my power, I will never find other hawks. So I need to go and leave my family, so to say, and really search for all the qualities that are in me that are so different to where I was brought up into, and then still have the power to come back and heal these wounds that you have with your family, understanding they want to try to make you chicken, and you learn I'm a hawk, and that's okay. I don't have to do anything about it. I don't even have to explain it. But now I understand why we are so different. And then the energy changes, but you can still move on your trail and get into this energy. And then we sometimes think this is the hardest way because learning to fly, you have to put in so much energy and you, right? But then what I like to say to this picture is when you see a hawk in the air, they usually float. So they don't even have to use so much energy, even though they are so strong, because they know precisely how to use their strength. And which means you will save a lot of energy because you don't predict your chicken anymore. And at the same time, you learn and gain more energy and strength. But at the same time, you also learn how to float and fly and really feel like this is my way now. This is who I am. Let's fly.
Beautiful analogy. I really love that. I'd love to dive a little bit into this topic just a little more because I feel that there's some beautiful juice in that, because it doesn't matter who you are, we're always growing into something different, always relatively speaking. So this conversation never gets old because it can always speak to anybody on their path right now. So imagining somebody is done a lot of this work, for example, maybe they've healed a lot of their family dynamics, their relationship dynamics, their money, and they feel like they're in a pretty good space. But guess what? They're an infinite being and they want more. Now they're starting to discover new patterns. What are the traits and the energies or the signs that people could recognize or look out for to see if they are perhaps getting stuck in a loop, because they might not now realize it because it's a whole nother plane?
Whenever you feel like somebody pushed your button, it's mostly a loop, an old loop with an old wound that hasn't healed. And as soon as you feel I'm not in control of what is happening in my body right now, because I feel shame, I feel disappointed. Oh, again, this happens, and you have this rush of energy, or you feel almost like not like yourself because it's happening inside of you and you have to play along with it. Even though, and that's also what I learned, even with myself, even if you know your loop very well, it still happens that you fall into it again because you feel like I'm not in control of what is happening right now. And if you have this feeling, I'm not in control of it, it's happening to me, but it's happening again and again and again. It's probably a loop. It's probably a strong loop, and it deserves to get looked at it. Either write it down or feel it more, or talk to someone who can help you to understand that. But I think this is one of the strongest markers that you can detect, that it almost feels like somebody pushed a button and now I'm doing something and I can even watch myself doing it, but I don't want to do it. Going into shame, feeling different again. I came to my family feeling beautiful. 10 minutes in, I feel, not the right hair, not the right body. Are you eating enough? You should eat more. And then you question yourself, and out of a sudden it happens and you feel, I'm not good enough. And it's really hard to step out of it, then I think you detect you're in it, because it's almost like giving up in that moment, giving your own personal will to this loop, and you're stuck in it, and it makes you feel shitty.
One of my longest term teachers has always been this law of relativity. Even growing up without any sort of spiritual teachings at all growing up, this is something that's been on my mind from being a child. So I'm always interested in everything is relative. And what you're saying points to this deeper wound, which then links to our purpose on this planet, our individual purpose for being here. And so, relatively speaking, these loops that we're in, we can get over them on a huge scale, to the point where you almost, well, say 99% of the time, it does not trigger you. But as you were saying, it will come back, and it may come back very sparsely, and it may come back very quietly. And every now and again, it may come back quite loud, just out of nowhere. But that is, to me, this recognition of us always being able to have this potential feedback to then grow into a next level version of ourselves. We all have these certain loops. One of the things that was a big thing for me, I used to get really, for a period, I got really angry at the state of the world, the governments, the wars, all the injustice that was happening. And that was this kind of fiery, angry energy of pointing fingers. You've done bad. And that served a purpose for a while. It brought up a lot of emotion, caused me to move and take action and write music and get creative. But at some point, I realized that this was not serving my health in any way, my mental health. I was in a loop, right? I was depressed and angry around these situations, and that then led to the next levels of me clearing and transforming the emotions that are connected with that, which inevitably brought me into more of a space of love and less triggers. And then I started to connect with the sense of oneness around everything, and not pointing fingers and saying you're to blame. It's your fault that there's problems and wars in the world. Having this realization, that's all in me. If I see it, there's saying, if you spot it, you got it. And I see this stuff in the world, that's in me. I have this vibrational essence within me that has certain responsibility on my personal level to clear that. So as I keep transforming and changing, those old triggers don't affect me as much anymore. Almost zero. But every now and again, something will come up, and I'll feel that tension and that kind of force almost trying to pull me back into the matrix of pointing blame. But the good thing about it is I've separated myself from it so much and expanded from it so much that I recognize it like night and day. It's so contrasting that I can see it in that moment, and I can shift and clear it. And guess what? There's a new package and a new message for me to take another step into the next level of my truth, of me really understanding more about who I am, which is always linked with who I'm here to serve, how I'm here to serve. And it's great for us to remember that it's okay to still have these triggers every now and again, but just recognize that it's probably, if you've been working on it, it's not going to be there in the same way as it was before. But you still have this beautiful gift. Don't ignore it, and don't think I'm falling back into old patterns, but actually just recognize it and go, yes, thank you, brilliant. Let me come through this and shift this. And the awareness can be, the new wisdom can be absolutely astonishing and really takes us to the next levels.
Yeah. And that takes me back to where we started, where we said we come from a society where you learn you have to be done at some point. You have to check off certain lists, and then you're supposed to be happy, whatever that means. And I think that's one of the biggest illusions that we are all grown into, that we think when I've done all this, then I'm ready, and I stay that way. But life is like a plant. It's always growing at all times. And if you found one new trigger and you cleared it up and you stepped out of the loop and you gained new energy, you stepped up one more step, and then there's a new step, and then a new step and a new step. It's always about running up the stairs to a higher energy. And if and one of the things that is hard, we also talk about, if you feel you're different, a lot of people take notice and then also maybe criticize you or feel you're pushing their buttons, right? And that was hard for me in the beginning, because where I came from, I was like this beautiful people pleaser who always wanted to be nice to everyone. And then at some point I had this understanding of, if they feel triggered by me, it's a chance for them to take the next step. So I'm also supporting them, even though they don't like it, but we're giving other people a chance to change whenever we push their buttons, not because I want to, but just because of who I am and how I live my life now. To give other people the chance to also realize, oh, I have a trigger here. Why is this triggering me? And if they understand and clear this up and step out of that loop, they take a step and they get to a next level. And that's, I think, when you experience traveling like you've done, or like me have done it, you realize there are not so many lists anymore, because you get out of the society you're coming from and you get to a point where you have to create your own lists. And what I found out is that sometimes can be really hard, because if you never really learned what you want, what you like, what makes you really happy, that's going to be the next big step to learn. Like what is really giving me something that makes me smile? What lights up my mood? What is effortless for me, right? Not hard work, but easygoing. And then at the same time, it's good work that I do. And then it's almost like stepping into a new universe where you totally learn new roles, new definitions. You fill out your dictionary of how you want to define things. You fill out your markers that help you step out of your loops, and you become a different person. And it's the picture that I have sometimes in coaching is that I say, when we walk on a high mountain with snow, one of the things we learned is we have to step into the shoes of another person that was already walking in front of us. But now if you step out of that, it means out of a sudden you stand there and there's just blank snow, and you have to decide, where do I want to go? And this sometimes can be a big challenge.
It's really pointing to understanding more of our deeper essence of who we are.
Yeah.
What have you learned about yourself around your essence, Søren? I ask this because for me, I would say I was really, not for every aspect, but for some aspects of my life, I was completely asleep to the possibilities of the world. Some people seem to be born and they have this and they grow from that place onwards. Mine was almost a frustration and not even understanding what was going on in the world and myself for so many years, that's what was causing this irritation and anger and wanting to break out of something, the prison that I didn't even know I was in. So I'm asking that for some reason right now, because I'm just curious, how did your journey unfold?
One of the things that was very strong for us, because I was born in East Germany when it was still East Germany. So what would the neighbors think? You had to really fit in the system. And I was different since I was born because even though I was a boy, I was very feminine. So people started saying, "Oh, your daughter looks very nice." And that was already different. So people already had something to talk about me, but I had no chance to change that. That was who I was. And one of the first things that I started to work with on myself was, I'm a boy. How am I a boy? What is different to the boys around me and me? How do I change that? And I think from very early on to my later teenage time, I really strongly tried to be a boy and become a boy, which then also was connected to don't be so sensitive. Why are you crying so much? And also, what I realized is that I came up with a soul that almost doesn't understand how people can be bad to each other. Like, when somebody did something bad to me, I felt the pain, but at the same time, I was always like, why is he doing this? Like, why would somebody do this? So I realized when I was looking back later, taking therapy, taking coaching, being on my own path, that deep inside of me, I would never do harm to anyone. And I don't want to do harm to anyone because I don't understand the concept of it. But to realize that, that was a big step for me. And to understand that our society is very different on this. And then when I became, for me, in my view, a boy, and what happened before also that I was already in school called a faggot, I didn't even know what it was. I then had to tackle with the thought, am I gay? What is that? What is a gay person? Am I a gay person? So that was kind of like the next step I had to take after I really worked hard for myself on becoming a boy, than to hear, am I a gay boy? So what is that? And then I was like, no, I'm not. I'm a boy. I'm a this, I'm a that. And that was very early on where I didn't even know. And then at some point you realize, oh no, I am gay. So how do I put this into my system now? And how do I make peace with that? So I was always different. Now I feel even more different. And then to always come back to myself and get a sense of myself and to say, this is, I am who I am, and that's okay. I don't have to change for that. And then also, what I think a lot of us came up with is you very early on have to know what you want to work with, who you are in a profession. And that for me was very hard because I always knew I'm good with people, but then I didn't. I always fancied people who said, I want to become a fireman or a police officer. And they become that and they live it and they love it. And I was always almost jealous of that because I never had the sense of who do I want to be? Like, what do I want to work? What really fills me? And I think the first time really that I got a sense of what my essence is and what I can help people with was when I was in Colombia. And then people out of a sudden in my closer friendships circle came to me and they said, we heard you are a coach. Can you help me with this problem? But I never really told anyone I'm a coach. Just people came to me with that. And I realized when I sit down with a person and this person is explaining the problem that she or he has, that almost my system works on different level. I can hear what you say, but at the same time, I can go behind that into a deeper level, understanding where is this coming from, to ask questions to help you to see the other layers as well. So, and that for me was effortless, almost like listening to you, having a conversation, asking you some questions, and then people were looking at me and having aha moments. I was like, wow, I'm good at this. And I didn't even learn this. This is what I learned coming up in my life, being so high sensitive and highly emotional that I was, to read people somehow and to almost like help them to read themselves as well. And I remember once a client told me, I love you and I hate you because you're the most loveliest mirror I ever had, but at the same time, it can be so painful to see what you see and then to take it, not punching you in the face because you said it, to understand you're saying this because this is what you see. And if I accept that, it's going to help me to make the next move. And because I know you have such a big heart, I can take it. So give me more, right? And then, yeah. But at the same time, I also want to say, just because I'm a coach and just because I'm 45, it doesn't mean I'm done. I still question myself. I still ask myself what makes myself happy. Am I still hiding parts of me or not? And I'm also still on the journey, as we all are. And I think that's so important because we are a living organism that is changing all the time.
How do you perceive energy? You mentioned highly sensitive just a moment ago, and I know from knowing you from before, this is something I've always been curious about in general, but also about you. I'd love to hear your personal perception, or how could you explain how you, and excuse the terminology because I don't know yet, but how do you
Yeah.
read the field? Do you see energy? Do you sense energy? Do you smell it? What are these kind of extra sensory ways that you perceive and see the world or see people? Or I don't really know how to communicate the question, but I think you get it. I just love to hear from your words how that is for you.
Yeah. It's very subtle. It's almost like, have you ever had a conversation where you talk to someone and it feels so effortless in that conversation, almost like something is opening up, connecting you two, and in that space that you two opened up, things happen that you can't explain. And that is almost how it works when I'm in coaching with clients. I listen to what they tell me, and then out of a sudden, I get a sense for a question, or I get a picture in my head. I remember once a client was telling me about a new girl he was dating. He met her on a festival, but she was 15 years older than he. And he said, I don't know, should we continue meeting? She has 2 kids and I'm so young. Is this even worth it? And out of a sudden, I had in my picture, a picture in my head of an island where both of them were just sitting on that island, free of all the outside expectations. And I said, you know what? Why don't you see it like that? You two are an island for each other where you can meet. So it doesn't matter how big the difference is. You just meet on that island and you create your own rules, how you want to rule this island. And he froze. And I said, what's going on? Why are you freezing? And he said, because it's so crazy. The last moment we met at that festival, I said, I wish we could have an island to escape on. And now you telling me I should see her as an island, right? And that's where the aha moment happened. It's almost like your system underneath is communicating with me somehow. And then I get pictures. And then I bring these pictures to the table. And mostly they help to detect something or to see something better. Or I have clients telling me, I had coaches, I had therapists, but nobody ever explained it to me like you. And I think this has to do because I speak a lot in pictures because they are easy to take, but this is also how it comes to me. And then a picture is almost like a story. It's easier to digest instead of somebody explaining something to you, right? The picture of the eagle and the chicken. Everybody understands that. Or the picture of walking in the snow and out of a sudden you have to make your own steps. The picture of having your own island and creating your own rules. And I love this kind of work. It's almost like it almost sometimes feels like I don't have to prepare for the coaching because it's happening in that moment. And you who is listening to me will get what you need to hear. And I deeply learned to trust that process and to bring that energy into the conversation. And I always, and I also sometimes ask my clients to say, I have a very strong picture. Do you want to hear it, or should I soften it down a bit? And then people can decide how strongly they want to have the picture. And then I say between 0 and 10, and 10 is I want to have the whole picture, give it to me. And then mostly they say 10. And then I try to give it to them in a way that it's easy to take so they can digest it. Yeah. And it's not seeing colors or hearing something or it's mostly like feeling I let go, I listen, I completely concentrate on you, and then we see what's gonna happen.
That's my favorite way of working as well. It's really got to meet in the present moment. I can't take notes. I can't even reflect on notes really, because everything in the past is irrelevant. Everything in the future doesn't exist right now. And everything that's happening in this moment is there for a reason. And if you're also picking and choosing a coach, whether we pick or choose them or not, or they, they're whether
we find them.
You'll find them and be attracted to them somewhat because they're very needed, like yourself. You'll be very needed for somebody, what they need in that moment, in that time.
Yeah.
And she said that space created, whatever you bring up in them is also the amplification of what they need. I've experienced this so much with coaching, where there's no point in planning. I could plan for a whole week ahead of time before a specific coaching session.
Yeah.
I'm going to work on anger, and this could be either way, right? Frustration. I'm frustrated. I want to work on my claustrophobia, whatever it is. You bring that to the table 20 minutes before the session happens, 5 minutes before the session happens. All that goes out the window because something in life happens that shifts you into a whole different energy state. And you say, I wanted to work on my claustrophobia, my anger, my frustration, but this other thing happened just now, and that's all that's present in this moment.
Yeah.
And then you work on that, and you go into the deepest depths, and you uncover the most magical work that no one was expecting, because part of what we were planning on bringing to the table is partially ego. But when you work in the present moment with what is right now, and then just keep letting it unfold, it will go deeper if it's meant to go deeper, and it will just dissipate if it's not important enough. So I love that. I love that aspect. And I love hearing how you work as well and how you perceive. I imagine it like, I don't know if this would be the correct analogy, but this is how I'm imagining it, is the person, your partner, your client is almost the projector in a cinema, and you are kind of in this idea, the screen, but also you're in the audience watching the film as well. So you're able to then tell the person, the projector, what, because they can't see what they're projecting. They are just giving this out. So you're able to communicate with it because you're able to pick up on that picture, but you're also able to see it to be able to then communicate it.
This is exactly how I want to support people, because if I would only bring my ideas to the coaching, then it would be my coaching dropped on you. But if you come into the coaching and I'm like a blank page, well, I know methods and I also use them. And as we talked before, archetype, inner child, stuff like that, rituals that I include, they are all in the back of my mind. But in the end, the client in the session chooses what to do. And as a coach, I believe you're helping the client to walk its own way, or his or her own way, and get a feeling of, I can do this myself now because I'm learning to see. And if I can help you to see and also teach you how you can see it yourself, well, that's the best way to do. You shouldn't be attached to me as a coach. You at some point should have the feeling, oh wow, now I get it. And that's also what I love to tell my clients when they start with me, that I say, in the beginning, you will come to the coaching and bring a problem. And later on, hopefully, you will come to the coaching telling me how you solved the problem and how you did it yourself because you understand now. And that is really what I want people to feel, that they are in power and they can do it and they can break their own loops and they can get out of it. They can understand it. And whenever they need a support on seeing it themselves, they can come to me and I show them if, whatever comes up.
What's your personal perception on what it means to be a space holder?
I think that's one of the biggest qualities for anyone who's working either as a healer or a coach or somebody supporting others to find themselves. Because holding space is such a beautiful gift to bring your attention 100% to the person that is with you, just for that person or for that circle that you're in. It's almost like opening up that bubble in which you perceive, but also in which you send, even without words. And I love this moment when I give a workshop and I step into the room and I feel like I'm taking this room now. I'm 100% present for everybody who's here now. And that gives me a sense also to feel them. What's going on here? Is there tension? Is there relaxation? Is there sadness? And to detect this almost like a computer, receiving all the information. And then at the same time, when you want people to sit down and relax, to shine into this room, into the space, relaxation and welcome to yourself. And you shine this into the room and people feel it and people can, like a vibration. They can sit on that vibration that you bring to the circle, but also at the same time to understand when it's not to you to bring anything into the circle, but to hold the space for every energy that is there that wants to be heard. If you cannot hold this, you cannot hear it. If you just want to bring something, you cannot work with what is there. And then to bring that quality to say, yes, we're here to listen. So let's see what's there and then work with that. I think it's one of the highest gifts and also one of the most amazing things to work with. If you feel like we have this space now and in this space, you allow yourself to open up and tell me your deepest problems and you don't feel judged and you don't feel whatever you usually feel, but you feel like he's listening to me, he's not judging, and he's then telling me what he's seeing in all of this so that I can understand it even better. So that's the best feedback that I can get from a client when they open up and feel this space is just for me. And at the same time, the space where I have the best results.
I loved listening to that. Something that was coming up when you were sharing around that was my experience of overcoming stage fright and all the lessons I learned along the way doing that. It's incredible. And it's going to continue on. There's always going to be nuances around this, but it really links with space holding in the sense of one of the main reasons I had quote unquote stage fright was because I would get up on the stage, and as you were saying, it's having this awareness, you're feeling, you're sensing people's emotions, energies, thoughts, judgments, all the things that they've got going on. But imagine there's 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people picking up on that energy field, how much information is coming through, so much of it. So in the early days, I would identify with that thinking it was mine. Then I would not be able to speak because I'd be so overrun with all these thoughts, emotions, feelings, which were actually the people I'm speaking to. And the more I could clear and shift my fears and emotions around speaking, the more I started to realize that that's what actually was happening for me. I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but this is my experience. So the more I cleared around that, the more I was able to stand more in my strength and not get pulled down and lose my shit, and observe people and be more present with people on the
Yeah.
stage, in the audience, from me being on the stage. And that was huge for me, because, and how it links with space holding is that the more I can observe and be in that space without being pulled into other people's stuff, then I become this beacon and a beam of light that simply observes what's going on and then can maintain, just literally like a light bulb, how it just brightens
Yeah,
up a room.
exactly.
You can hold that, and then other people can then be more present with you. But if you are being drawn into their stuff, what have they got to look at? Because you're no longer shining. You've just blended in with everyone else. So yeah, it's really interesting to think about it and observe it from that perspective.
Well, I've been on stages so many times, and either as a presenter or also as a singer, and done a lot on stage. And one thing I learned, or that I was always very surprised by, sometimes you have people coming on stage and it's loud in the room and they just stand there and people quiet down. And then there's these other people coming in and they're like, shh, can you be quiet? We want to start now. And people still continue talking. So you see what kind of energy are they bringing to the stage. And if you have a person that comes on stage and it brings this resonating awareness, I'm here now for you guys. So let's tune in without talking. You shine, like you said, it's like shining into the people. Then their systems will detect that and they will look at you and they will like, oh, he has something to say because he's here for us. He brings this huge attention and let's see what he has to say. And then people quiet down and they listen to you and they enjoy it because they feel like it's almost like collecting them by not saying anything, but bringing presence. You touch them with your presence. And yeah, it's almost magic sometimes when you can create that, when you can do that. I love it.
Just recently I started to practice. It's not like a constant thing, but just as a general idea, especially for people that are very sensitive and maybe get connected and pulled in by all these different emotions and people's stuff. A lot of empaths. This is probably the term for empaths. I found something that was really a fun kind of a visual idea for me to remain in the power without getting sucked into all of the environment in general. Have you ever seen the film Minority Report? This came up.
Oh
It's
yeah.
got Tom Cruise in it. It's got these sort of futuristic screenless screens and they can move things. It's almost, I was imagining it as having this big bubble around, and on around the entire bubble there's all the information of the field, all the people,
Yeah.
places, things that's happening in that moment, but it's projected on that bubble around you. And at the same time you are sort of in what you might imagine just a very strong energy aura around your body inside this bubble. So you're able to just look and watch the screen and just see and sense everything that's going on. But instead of it all being here and all tangled up inside, so you're actually just trying to figure it out from the inside, you're able to observe it from this space whilst
Yeah.
maintaining the strong energy field within. I just really enjoyed that as an idea for, because it's not about protecting energy. There's a lot of people talk about you want to protect your energy field. I'm not so sure it's always about that. More about how can we perceive ourselves in the world? And can I take in and connect and receive all the information that's happening in the field and the person in front of me, whilst maintaining this strong, powerful energy field of myself, this sovereign strength, whilst not being pulled into it, but also not disconnecting myself from it? Because that's the other thing, is how can I be with it, but not let it take over me, so I can remain truly in my authentic self?
I think I saw a documentary and there was a guy and they asked him what his motivation was. And he said he learned the question, am I a creator or am I a consumer? And he learned if you are in your energy and you really have a sense of yourself, you also have to be a creator. And if you are a creator, the question is, what do I want to create today? Right? And that brings me back to where we started. What kind of boyfriend or girlfriend do I want to be? Right? Is it reacting to the other person and always fall into consuming what is dropped on me and then reacting? Or do I have a sense of this kind of boyfriend I want to be, this kind of son I want to be, this kind of father I want to be? And you start learning to resonate that from the inside out instead of reacting to it all the time. Same with work. So many people say, I have to go to work. I have to do this. I have to do that, which in my term is already bringing you in a consumer situation, because you have to do this instead of I want this. You signed a contract. That's why you decided you want to do this work. So if you can change and shift that to I really want this, I want to be this kind of worker, I want to be good in this work, and this is the creation that I bring to my job, it will totally, from one day to another, can change the energy, how you go to work, instead of just always reacting how work is doing something to you, right? Same with family, same with relationships. And again, it's so simple, but it's this question: do I create or do I consume? What and who do I want to be? And usually getting into a good sense of yourself, it should be creator, because that's when you bring something into the world, and that's when you can shine, and that's when you bring presence.
Thank you for sharing your time. How can people find you and work with you, perhaps?
I have a website. It's called Coach Søren, SOREN.com. Or you can find me on Instagram, which I love as well. It's Søren underlining Thielcke. My last name is THIELCKE. Would love for you to follow me, send me your questions, send me your ideas. And yeah, that would be cool. I think these are the main ways to connect with me.
And you work online as well, so it doesn't have to be geographical proximity.
No. Yeah, most of the coachings I do online, digitally, so the energy shifts can also happen through the computer.
Amazing. Do you have a program coming out?
I was just looking back into the years of me being as a coach, kind of like realizing what is the thing that I help people the most with. And we talked about this a bit. I'm calling it the Break the Loop program method. It's now finalized. I feel really confident with it because it took all the things that I learned with my clients and put it into the system. It works usually for 10 episodes, which I talk of seasons. I only work with my clients in seasons, which always are 10 episodes. You decide the name of your season, which includes what you want to change, what are the old patterns that you want to break free from. And then throughout the program, you will gain more clarity, emotional freedom, but also with the Break the Loop method, you will step into a new way of living where you become the creator, as we talked about. And we have a kick off and we see what are you stuck in. Then we will look a little bit deeper, and then we bring you to your new performance energy that you deeply have inside of you. So yeah, that's a new program that I just brought out. And if you're interested, just let me know and we can connect and talk about it.
We'll add the information in the description below as well. Thank you for being here. Thank you for anyone listening. Check out Søren, his wonderful work, all the information in the description. And thank you so much. Enjoy your day.
Thank you too, Steve, for inviting me. It was a big pleasure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great to connect again.